Okay, good morning and welcome to Community Trade Unions Menopause Roundtable discussion with Carolyn Harris MP. I'm Jennifer Dean, Regional Organiser at our Northern region, and I'm absolutely delighted to see so many members here today for such an important webinar on an issue I care deeply about, menopause. I know many of you care deeply about this too, as ahead of the webinar, dozens of questions and testimonies were submitted from you, our members, and we're going to do our very best to touch on all of them. Also in the background and joining us today are Maya Lany and Alex Galucci from our research team who'll be helping out during the session. Now, before I introduce our brilliant guest speaker properly, I'd like to quickly go through the plan for this discussion. So Carolyn will be kicking off the discussion and will tell us about her fight for a menopause revolution. We will then open up the floor to questions. Now, I really want you to all get involved and engage with this discussion. Feel free to use the chat buttons to talk to each other, and also use the Q&A box to submit your questions as we go. Then later we will bring you in, ask you to unmute yourself and ask your question unless you indicate that you would like us to read it on your behalf and to remain anonymous. So if for whatever reason you're having difficulty submitting your question, just drop our research team an email on research@community-tu.org. We'll put that into the chat in just a second as well. So now I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our guest, Carolyn Harris. Carolyn is the MP for Swansea East and the chair of the newly formed All-Party Parliamentary Group on Menopause. She's leading the menopause revolution and she aims to change the law to remove charges for hormone replacement therapy in England, improve menopause training for GPs and change the curriculum to include menopause education in schools. We're proud to work with Carolyn to bring the revolution to the workplace too. Over to you, Carolyn.
Well, good morning, guys. And I too am a community member, so I'm very proud of that. Okay, so menopause. Why is it taking us so long to be talking about this? Well, we have talked about menopause in this auspicious building for quite a while. I've been an MP since 2015. And I remember in 2016 getting a debate on International Menopause Day, 2017, 2018, 2019, even 2020. And we're also having one in 2021. But all we've done is talk. And the reason why we've only been able to talk is because, like anything else in Westminster, wheels turn slowly. And you always need to have a hook, I call it a hook, to be able to hang a campaign on. And there are many things I would like to see changed about the way people deal with the menopause, hence the terminology, the menopause revolution. And currently out there are huge amounts of campaign groups, but they're all focused on one thing. So they're all working in silos. So I wanted to bring these groups together and I wanted to bring attention through the media and I wanted to bring attention through the political stratosphere in order to be able to make those changes. So we annually talk about this and we've always had a really brilliant reception. We've had cross-party support, we've had men, women, we've had everybody talking about their menopause, their mother's menopause, their wife's menopause, their grandmother's menopause. We've talked about every aspect of menopause. What we've never been able to do is just move on from the talking because we managed to get education for young people on the curriculum for schools in England, but that really hasn't happened. It's on there, it's meant to be on there, but I've had little evidence of anything actually being delivered in the schools. But that's about the only hit we've had over the last 6 years. And that's because when you're asking the government to do something, you have to be quite specific as to what you're asking them to do, and you have to press the right buttons and go through the right channels to be able to make that happen. So we've talked about doing an APPG, which is an all-party parliamentary group. And I've always found them to be a really useful vehicle to effect change, provided you do it the right way. There are thousands of APPGs, and they are about anything from China to leather insoles. Literally, we got them on every subject. A lot of them are talking shops, and they do nothing but discuss a subject with each other, maybe have a visit to somewhere like China, God forbid. But I've always been involved with APPGs, which were set up with an aim to give you an idea, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the work I've done on gambling, but we did a huge amount of work and continue to do a huge amount of work around gambling reform because of an APPG. And we're doing a huge amount of work around the beauty industry and the legalities of injectables through an APPG. So I knew that if we got an APPG going, that we could actually do something. But what we could achieve was dependent on what legislation we could get into place. So we talked about what we wanted the APPG to do. And then in May of this year, I got pulled number 3 in a private member's bill. Now, the private member's bill happens once every parliamentary term. There are 650 MPs and there are 20 names literally pulled out of a fishbowl. And there are 12 sitting Fridays, which is the only day that private members' bills are heard. So in order to get anywhere on the order paper, in order to be with the slimmest chance of getting something discussed, you need to be in the top 12. If you're in 12 and beyond, there's a chance you get second on the order paper on the day that you get allocated. But if the bill ahead of you is contentious or somebody tries to, you've heard the term filibuster, you've heard people talking out the bill. If that's happened, then you get a slim chance of getting it heard. So to get number 3 was a huge thing for us because that meant that we guaranteed to be first on the order paper on whatever day they chose to give us. So that was exciting. And I was offered what they call handout bills, which is where the government actually asks you to introduce something they intend to do anyway, but it gives you the kudos of actually getting the bill through, and it gives them the kudos of being able to say, oh, we've done this and we've done that. But I was offered some really good stuff, which would have been really, really important, but I wanted to do menopause, much to the frustration of my team who kept saying, but what are we going to do on menopause? What is it that we can do, we can change? Because for a private member's bill to get through effectively, it has to be relatively simple with only one government department. Because once you start talking to other government departments, because ideally I would like to have introduced workplace policies as a mandatory thing in workplaces. I would love to do that. But to do that, I would have needed several government departments involved, which have meant Whitehall talking across each other. That meant it would never have happened in the timescale, which meant it never would have happened full stop. And it would have sort of been left to lie with dust gathering on it. And I think it would have devalued that as an issue because it wouldn't have gone anywhere. So to the outside world, that looks like it's not important enough to legislate on. So I didn't want that. And we just, I kept thinking about what can we do? And it was just talking to a friend who was going for her prescription. And she said that she was going to pay 40 quid for a prescription. And I said, why is it 40 quid? And she said, oh, because there's 2 hormones in each packet and you get charged per hormone. And I said, yeah, and why do you pay 40 quid? And she said, it was £9.50 an item. I said, what's £9.50 an item? She said, the prescription. I said, you're having a laugh. And I realised in Wales, we don't pay for prescriptions. And I thought, there's the hook. If I can get the government to agree to scrap the prescription charges for women in England, that in itself is an achievement. But I wanted something that was going to open up the debate, to get the world thinking that the UK Parliament is discussing menopause. The UK Parliament is going to be doing something nobody else in the world is doing, legislating on the menopause. And that's exactly the effect it's had. We've had Australian TV over asking us to do stuff. We've had American TV interested. We've had American universities, Japanese universities. We've had so many inquiries from overseas saying, we want to know what you're doing because they want to replicate us. So, I just keep saying to the government, you're going to be world leaders in this. We thank God that we've got a UK government who's ready to pick up this mantle and to do the right thing by women. So the private members bill will hopefully introduce free prescriptions. So the estrogen and the progesterone that you are, estrogen and progesterone, which you currently get prescribed, will be like women in Scotland and Wales, will be free. There is a third hormone, testosterone, which isn't licensed except through private medication in the UK. So I've gone on all 3 of them, but I went private to make sure that I got the testosterone. So another angle of the campaign is that I want to make that there's a process to get medication licensed, and I want to make sure that we push that so that testosterone becomes available through prescription and the NHS, so that right across the UK, all 3 hormones are available to women in the UK. What's really irritating is that these are the only hormones which are not free on the NHS, and so you can have the pill. In some cases, men can have Viagra, you can get insulin. All the other hormones are free, except for the hormones that women need in order to combat the menopause. Now, I'm not saying that that HRT is the answer for everyone, because it won't be, but a large proportion of the population who are currently having brain fog, dry vagina, there it was, words out there, restless leg, brittle nails, it goes on. There's about 30 different symptoms that if you went to the doctor with one of them, you would end up having tests for something, when in reality, if the doctors knew enough about menopause, then we would be in a position where they would be diagnosing perimenopausal and menopausal women rather than sending them for tests for brittle bones, onset dementia, because that's what's happening now. Or, lo and behold, like me, ended up on antidepressants for 11 years because I was anxious, I was depressed, I was living life in a pink anorak with a hood up, thinking that I was having a nervous breakdown. Looking back now, I was going through the menopause. But because I was only telling my doctor about the anxiety and the depression, I was prescribed antidepressants. I'm still on them 11 years later because I don't want to go back to being that woman in the pink anorak. But now that I'm taking HRT, I'm weaning myself off the antidepressants. But how many other women out there are on antidepressants when in actuality they were menopausal? 41% of medical schools do nothing on the menopause. So that, seriously now, girls, 41% of medical schools that GPs are going to have not even spoke about the menopause. How insane is that? Can you imagine any medical school not actually studying testicular cancer, for example? It would never happen. Of those who do talk about the menopause on the curriculum, they give it between 20 minutes and 2 hours. So this whole raft of symptoms, which are currently using a huge resource within the NHS, sending women for tests for different ailments, could be prevented if only the doctor knew more about the menopause and was putting one-on-one together and coming up with 4, not coming up with 3 and sending you for the test for onset dementia. I spoke to someone very famous recently who dad had onset dementia, and she was driving through the countryside. And she's driving through the countryside and she's surrounded by green stuff. And she stopped the car and she said, she just couldn't remember what it was called. She knew it was green stuff. She knew what it was, but it was grass. So she terrified herself into thinking she had onset dementia, early onset dementia. It was only when she went and spoke to a menopause specialist, because they're the only ones who at the moment really understand the menopause. And they are few and far between because there are no jobs for them in the NHS. So menopause specialists work privately because the NHS does not provide the workspace for them and don't recognise the menopause as something they need to devote this amount of attention to. And there are a lot of people out there, a lot of women out there who have, have actually found themselves thinking that they've got onset dementia. And when you stop and reflect on that, and I often think about the girls I was in school with and the people who were around my age, and I've seen them out and about, and I've had a conversation with them and we've talked about different things, and they'll tell me, oh, I got this ailment, I got that ailment, oh, I think I've got osteoporosis, whatever. Thinking back now, did they have it? I don't know, I've got, the big one for me was ME. I've got ME because I'm tired all the time and I'm fatigued, and having medication for ME. Thinking about the people involved, I think they were menopausal, but I'm not a doctor. I can only tell you what I know from the work that I've done with menopause charities and with menopause doctors and with all the organisations. There are so many women out there who did not know that they were menopausal. When you come to the workplace, what I find really frustrating, more frustrating than the workplaces who have nothing, are the workplaces that have something on an app they forget to tell the staff about. I went to one really good supermarket not long ago, and we had this conversation about menopause, and they showed me the app that they had for the people managers to be able to access, and that they did this and they did that and they did this and they did that. Then I asked the girls on the shop floor, so how is the menopause policy working for you then, girls? And they all said to a woman, I didn't know we had one. So to me, that's worse than having nothing. Because if you've got something, you're only paying lip service to it. You're doing it because you think it ticks a box. That, I think, is what would have happened if we'd gone down the road of legislation. If we'd forced the government into legislating for menopause policy, people would have felt compelled to do something, and it would have ended up as ticking a box. The way I want to do it is by working with unions, and unions convincing their members that they need to go to their managers, they need to go to their chief executives, they need to say, come and talk to this woman, she's an MP, but she got an idea that she thinks you ought to adopt. I want to get workplaces into the APPG. I want to name and shame. If I find out there's an employer who is not paying women the due respect, I will stand in the House and Commons chamber and I will name them and I will shame them. I will probably enjoy doing that, but there are some companies which are doing good stuff. There are other companies who think they're doing good stuff because they've got an app, and there are other companies who are doing bugger all. So it's time for us as women to stop putting other people first, to stop thinking, well, I'm going to say to the kids, I'm going to say to my husband, I'm going to do this. And I'm a fine one to talk because I do it all the time. But we have got to put ourselves first on this, because nobody else is going to do anything for us as women, let alone the menopause bit. No, I can take a joke about hot flushes like the rest of them, but I want to laugh with you. Don't laugh at me, and that's a huge difference. So that's where the revolution is going. I'm out and about. We've got some really, really big names involved in this. And when you say to most women, I'm doing work on the menopause, you can see the light come on the eye and think, I want to be involved in that, and that's happening all the time with people I've looked up to for years, politically and, in entertainment. Women like, I think she's on here, Cherry from Faith and Families in Swansea, a dynamic woman who's now feeling the strain of being menopausal. I want to make sure that however you're feeling today, that tomorrow there's something coming down the road which will make you feel a lot better about things. So women know they're not on their own, so that women know that they have respect, that women know that when they go into work, they shouldn't have to explain how they're feeling. They shouldn't have a manager ever again say, I need to talk to you about the mistakes you're making, and not, is there anything we can do to help you through this phase? That's the words that should be used. What can we do to make your working life better? Not, you are not giving the company everything that we expect of you at this moment. So there's so much we want to change. We want to change the way doctors are trained. We want to make prescriptions free. We want to introduce the new hormone. We want to make sure the kids in school leave school knowing that it's going to hit them. 51% of the population will suffer it. 100% of it will experience it. I want us to be not afraid to talk about the menopause. My mother didn't even talk about periods to me. Why would she talk? The menopause was something you said in hushed tones when you said somebody was on the change. Les Dawson taught me what I know about the menopause from when he was doing that little skit with Roy Barraclough. We've got to stop it. We've got to make sure that society, industry, everyone recognises that the menopause is not the end of your life. It's the opening of a new chapter. Be respectful, work with it, make sure it becomes an experience that you can build on and to go forward as a menopause warrior, which is what you all are. And that's it. That's my menopause revolution.
Thank you, Carolyn. I mean, some of what you just said really, really resonates with me, because my friend diagnosed me. We don't learn about this in school.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to the discussion. Now, we had a lot of questions asking about what do we mean when we say menopause and perimenopause. So I'm just going to say a little bit about what the NHS defines as menopause. It's the time when a woman stops having periods and is no longer able to get pregnant naturally. The menopause is part of natural aging. It usually occurs between 45 and 55 years of age, and it's as a woman's estrogen levels decline. In the UK, the average age for a woman to reach the menopause is around 51, but around 1 in 100 women experience the menopause before 40 years of age. Now, perimenopause or menopause transition begins several years before the menopause. It's the time when the ovaries gradually begin to make less estrogen. It usually starts in women's 40s, but it can start in their 30s or even earlier. And there's lots of information out there. So for me, do what I did, go and look it up, because we need to know more about this. We also need to tell our daughters about it. Right.
There's also the awful occasion where medical reasons have led someone to be menopausal. Breast cancer, for example, that will lead to early menopause. Yeah. Crohn's disease. There are some, like IVF. If you're having IVF, they actually turn off the tap, and you get menopausal symptoms until they turn it back on and put the eggs in. So there's not just older women, and it can happen at any time.
No, I was actually talking to somebody the other day, in one of our members, and she was in with a manager, and the manager was talking about the member's menopause, but the member had medical induced menopause. Mm. The manager didn't understand exactly what that means. And it means you've been thrown into the menopause. It's not even a gentle, slide down that hill. So everybody's experience is different. We have to understand a little bit more about it. Okay, so Maya, right. I'm going to need your help now to know who's on and who's not. So we've got some pre-submitted testimonies as well. So I'll start with one from Jane. She said, I've struggled for the last 18 months. It's totally affected my confidence and the ability to do my job. Now, did Sherry come on? Is she on at the moment?
Oh, I can't see her.
No, I can't.
Still waiting for her to join.
She did send us in a question. And what she said is, and this is for Carolyn, when you're in a position of such power and making differences, how do you cope with the brain fog?
That's really difficult sometimes, because even in my own home, I'm surrounded by men. Even my cat is a male, and I literally go through all their names. When I want one of them, I'll go through the whole list, how do you cope with it? You're just going to learn to live with it. Unfortunately, but I am finding that testosterone is helping with that. But it takes about 6 months to get into your body. But it is starting to help. I am starting to be less erratic with my thinking in terms of names and places and words. Like, that's a telephone, but it can be a time when I can't think of the name of it. And for me, it's like when I see people I know. And I know them, and I know the name, but do you think I can remember it? And that's really embarrassing. But it is getting better now, but it's testosterone that I've taken for it.
Yeah, you remind me of something. When I was growing up, my grandmother used to say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Jenny.
Yeah.
And she'll have been at that age as well. So it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, right, so let's have a look. I've got a question for the union, and this is from Helen. Do we have Helen on here? Right, okay, that's not a problem. So this is for Maya. So postmenopausal, but found out years later that fatigue and brain fog and difficulty focusing, but is unsure how to bring it. Sorry, let's just have a look. So postmenopause, found years later, fatigue and brain fog, difficulty focusing, but unsure how to bring up these things at work. So how can she bring this up at work? Who does she speak to, Maya?
Thanks for this, Jen. Thanks for Helen for submitting this question. We actually got quite a few versions of a similar question of how do you even bring this up? And this is still such a taboo and you feel you can't speak about this. So first of all, I'm going to share just now in the chat so everyone could see booklet our equalities team here in Community produced, and it includes a lot of information about the menopause and also findings from a survey we've conducted at 2019, so 2 years ago now, with our members reporting the symptoms they experienced. But what some things I find most concerning was about the level of support or lack thereof that they've received at work. And here in Community, we think that having to deal with menopause and having no support whatsoever is just unacceptable. There's a 10-step plan in the document that offers a ways forward of how to talk about this in work and what you can do. But in short, if I have to sum it up, is if you're not already a member, join, then make sure your colleagues join. Then together with the team here in Community, we can help you organize and bring about change at your workplace. We've done it in several workplaces before, and we want to do it again in more and more workplaces. So just to kind of have a brief explanation of what we're asking workplaces to do. We want them to have a policy in place of how their guidelines of what they're planning to do when their staff members and team members are going through menopause. We also want to see them offer awareness training, not just to staff, but also to managers, and we can signpost to charities that we work with that offer really brilliant training on this. And we also want to see reasonable adjustments. There are very easy fixes to some issues that should be a no-brainer, like maybe considering a change of uniform, offering a desk fan, or as we've experienced during the pandemic, working from home is an option. And these are just a few. There are more things that can be done, and obviously this could change from workplace to workplace, and not every job is the same. But this kind of is just a taste of what we would be calling for. So I hope that's helpful. But if you have any more questions, please get in touch with us, and we would love to help.
Uniforms are another one, making sure that whatever uniform you have to wear is breathable, so that it's not like nylon and it's oppressive, and simple little things like that. Making sure there's fans in the cupboard, you know, making sure, like you said, you can work from home, making sure that you can be flexible, come in later if it's busy traveling in, or, you know, loads and loads and loads of things.
Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to move over to one of our members, Barbara. I think Barbara's in our audience to ask a question. Mia, can you just unmute Barbara for me?
So we've asked Barbara to unmute. Barbara, can you hear us? Are you there? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay, there she is. I think you've muted yourself.
I'll try again.
Okay.
It won't.
That's lovely.
Yeah, we good?
Yes, we're good, Barbara. Hi, Barbara. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. So to be honest with you, talking about brain fog, I've done a couple of these sessions recently, and I can't remember which question I submitted to this one.
That's absolutely fine, Barbara. And you know,
absolute perfect example of how this is affecting me.
it certainly is. And how have you found? Have you found that you've been able to continue to work? Have you managed to get any adjustments in the workplace?
I have to be honest, it's simply because work from home has been enforced quite heavily in my workplace at the moment. So that has allowed me greater flexibility to manage myself. If I get up in the morning and I physically do not have the energy to brush my hair or to put makeup on, then do you know what? I will just sit behind my profile picture in my meetings and not go on camera. You know, I'm able to change my clothes 2 or 3 times a day if I need to. And I'm able to schedule my own breaks. So I'll sort of work maybe out of sync with some of my compatriots, but I'll make sure I'm available for the meetings I have to be. That for me has been an absolute godsend. And now we're starting to come back into the workplace. I'm doing sort of a hybrid model at the moment. I'm starting to see where my sticking points are going to be. Now, I'm only sort of 4-5 months into my HRT journey, and I suppose I've been having symptoms for about 4 years. So to automatically assume that they were related to other things, and then to have it all put together for me a few months ago, it was a bit of a shock. I'm 45, you know, so it was like, I didn't think this was my turn yet, you know. So I also work in a heavily male-dominated environment too, which has posed its own challenges. I work in heavy industry. I'm surrounded by men constantly. I'm fortunate I have a good few friends in the management team that I'm able to speak to, but I'm also really aware that for other women in my position, they don't have that, you know, luxury. It's a difficult one to be in, really difficult environment.
Thank you, Barbara. Do you know, I completely relate to that. And during the pandemic and being able to work from home, it just takes that level of stress down a little bit, because you have your home comfort sitting right behind you. Like you were saying about it being able to wear comfortable clothing, even if it's on the bottom half, it makes such a massive difference, especially when your side effects are kicking in, if that makes sense. So, Barbara, thank you so much for joining us today, and thanks for your comments. Anybody want to add anything on to that?
No, just, you know, Barbara, stick in there and, you know, join the menopause revolution. Be vocal. I can hear you got a Welsh accent. Are you living in Wales?
Yes, I am. I work for Tata Steel in Port Talbot.
Well, I need to come up and have a chat with them, don't I?
Please do. We would welcome you.
Yeah, well, get me invited. And I will get Steve Kennett to bring me, so that I'm not stepping on his toes. But Steve wouldn't mind. And maybe you could organise something in there for the women around the menopause, and I'll come and do a face-to-face with you. Get the managers in there and we'll have a chat with them.
That would be absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
No
We have a menopause session set up that we meet once a month, but it's all online because we've obviously got some of our Llanwern colleagues involved as well.
Yeah, I'll come on at whatever. I'll come on as a speaker, whatever. You just let me know.
Thank you very, very much. I will do. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Barbara. Great. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. Right, I'm going to go over to another of our testimonies from Vicky, who says, I'm a perimenopausal 47-year-old who has not got access to HRT and is fighting for it. And this is a story I know well. And going to a doctor and trying to get a HRT, there is such a big barrier to get through. One of the things I did in order to get myself medication that I needed was to really, really research what I was going in to ask the doctor about, to know the names of the medication, and to go in and say, this is what I want to try. And it was the only way I actually got it.
Demand it. You can demand.
Yeah.
You can demand it. And if you're not satisfied with the doctor you got, ask for a second opinion. If there's a female doctor in the surgery, maybe ask them to see you. But don't allow any doctor to tell you that you can't have HRT. You are entitled to have it. It shouldn't be a battle. If they are nervous about prescribing it, ask them to recommend a doctor within the practice who's not. Or worst comes to worst, go somewhere else. You know, you're entitled to that prescription, you can demand it.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, now let's see, we've got from Helen. Have we got Helen in our audience? No. Right, so why isn't HRT free and freely available like the contraceptive pill? I think you did answer that a little bit before, didn't you? But this is something that Carolyn is trying to make happen. I think you'd mentioned it is to do with these hormones are the only ones that are not free and not available on the NHS.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
It doesn't make any sense. Not when you consider the effect on women and how many people are out there.
But I think that's down to, and we've got to take some responsibility here, we put other people first. We have been silent. So we've allowed ourselves to go all these generations of women in front of us have put up with it because they thought, well, it's what you're going to go through. It's only now that it's not that long ago we started talking about periods. Now we're going to be talking about the menopause. We've got to lift that taboo. The more we talk about it, the more that we ask for things that we're entitled to. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for basic respect. That's all we want. And the more that we talk about that, and the more I gob off about it, then the more, bring your problems forward. Talk about them. Tell me, tell other people. We can deal with it. As long as we know we've got people behind us, we can talk about all these things.
And I would also add, talk to your union when you're having problems, because we really can help. We can support you to get the right things in the workplace. Just phone us up. We're absolutely here for you. I just want to say this is not just a women's issue as well. I've got a really heartbreaking testimony, and this came from one of our members, Jonan, who said, my mother lost her life to suicide while she was going through the menopause. She was suffering from anxiety. And it's not just women. This is about everybody. This is about putting this right. So
highest risk, if I can just go back on that, Jen, the highest risk, the highest levels of female suicide are between 45 and 51. That says it all. And I always talk about this, but I remember one year when we did the International Menopause Day, the responding minister was a Tory minister called Nigel Adams, and I talk about this to him all the time. And he listened to what we all had to say, and then he got up and he said that he has vivid memories of his mother being taken to a psychiatric unit because they thought that she had psychological problems. She was actually menopausal. It affects anyone. Dreadful, dreadful.
Okay, let's go over to one of our audience now, Maya. Is Eleanor there, please? Eleanor wanted to ask a question.
Yes, we don't have Eleanor just yet, but we have Bridget with us, who's ready to ask a question. So let's see if we can bring her in. Bridget, are you there? Can you unmute? Yes.
Hi, Maya. I didn't have a question. I think I gave a testament. That was all. I haven't got a question.
Would you like to share that?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm just turned 58, and I don't quite know. I've battled, I think, getting through my perimenopause without really realising that's what all the symptoms that I had were. And in that time, 2 years ago, I stepped back from my senior role because I had some health issues, and it was all a combination of everything really, and it was a lot of plate spinning my role as in education as a lead in a FE college, and I just felt everything was getting on top of me, so excuse me, I had to step back from it.
Bridget, your story is not an unusual story. So many women, and if we look at how the age of the working woman now, and more women living longer, more women staying in work for longer. But that period is where women need support to be able to maintain their careers. They shouldn't feel this way. No. With the right support, you wouldn't have to go through that.
Bridget, can I ask if you're on HRT now?
Well, I'm not, but I am about to start it. But I read all my leaflets. I got it. It's taken me 3. They've been very good, but I had to have my blood pressure taken, and things are very slow at the moment, aren't they? So they're sat on the side, but being very thorough, I read everything, and I have just got a question mark over one of my breasts, so I'm meant to be going today to see the doctor over it just before I start it really.
Your doctor will advise you on this, but just to give you a little bit of reassurance that the study that was done that said that there was a connection with breast cancer, the women who actually presented with breast cancer after the HRT, it was in the family anyway. The chances are they would have had breast cancer even if they hadn't had HRT. So that's a bit of a myth that have grown up. For some people it's overtaken the decision making, and it's prevented some people from going on it. And I just wanted to give you a bit of reassurance on that. But
I think that's absolutely, Carolyn. My sister, she's 3 years older than me, and she's battled even worse than me, to be honest. And I think it's our age bracket that report came out.
Yeah,
that it really did influence certainly people in their late 50s and early 60s. Maybe it was there, it was in front of them, and so that's sort of the myth that's being believed. And I'm, you know, she again had to step back from her job, and we've both gone through the same battle with ourselves, really, rather than thinking, oh, you know, you can go onto HRT and help, and there is, you know, the benefits to it. You battle through your employment.
I mean, I went on HRT. I went on with Louise Newson. She's one of the top menopause doctors in the country. So I spoke to her and she put me on HRT. But she's put women of 91 on HRT. So you're never too old.
No.
So, you know, I know somebody put up earlier on, when does it end?
It doesn't.
Sad news, girls, it doesn't. Because once those hormones are gone, they've gone. And you feel the consequences of not having them for the rest of your life. All HRT does is replace those hormones. One of the first things I noticed, phenomenally so, was within a week of taking HRT, my nails had gone really strong and had started to grow. Now, I've gone for years having nails that, you know, just didn't grow. They were brittle and they were, you know, they crack, and within a week I have really strong nails. My hair has grown, it's gone thicker, you know, and that's down to the HRT. But you're never too old, and you know, no matter how old you are, just if you think you need it, don't suffer in silence. Why suffer in silence? You know, this is something there's help out there. Don't leave a doctor convince you you're too old. Don't leave a doctor convince you don't need it. Don't leave a doctor convince you you're not menopausal. Demand it, get it, and see the difference.
Thank you, Carolyn.
And good luck later today. I hope your appointment actually holds.
Thank you.
That's one thing that's happened with me. Every appointment keeps getting shelved again and again.
Wow.
And then I come to sort them out if they cancel the appointment.
Right, thank you very much, Bridget.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got a testimony from Carolyn who says, why should we make menopause a protected characteristic? And maybe that reads, should we make menopause protected? Yes.
It is.
So why should we make menopause a protected characteristic? So it is, do we have Carolyn here? Have a quick look. Let's explain what she means.
Well, I mean, I would say the reason why is because it's just like pregnancy. It's something which needs to be recognised as not being a mainstream, and it needs to be made sure that we have the right provision to give women the respect they do. There's the lovely Sherry I was talking about. I can see her name on the screen now.
Oh, fantastic! Do you want to bring Sherry in? Could we just see if she'd like to add anything to? Hello, Sherry.
I couldn't get in for some reason, and I tried on all different laptops.
Yeah, no, you're not very good at technology, Sherry, so don't pretend.
No, I know, but I obviously missed the star of the show at the beginning, Caroline.
Yeah, but I mentioned you, love. You had a name check.
I just wanted to ask, one of the problems that I get is with brain fog and forgetting things, and I just, because you're in such a position of power and such passionate decisions you've got to make. How do you cope with the brain fog, Carolyn?
Well, for me, it's been the testosterone, love. I found a big difference since I've been taking that. But, you know, we've had this conversation, Sherry. You can only get that on private prescription. But, I mean, I know that Jennifer has talked about her gran had sort of put a coping mechanism in where she counted up to 5 and then knew she needed to say Jenny, which was her granddaughter's name. I just think you need, unfortunately, you've got to find your own way of dealing with that. But if you're like me, Cherry, that brain fog doesn't last very long, that you forget something, but it will come back to you. And I suppose the worst situation is when I tend to use things like, oh, you know, what's his name, thingy-majig? Now people understand what I'm saying. I've created my own language. And they all say, yeah, I know what you mean. But it's the test. I found that testosterone has helped me.
Yeah, I mean, if you're standing in questioning some of the politicians the other side of
I never forget that, interestingly enough. Never ever. I'll go with the chamber today now and I'll forget what I was going to say. But I I know I'm going to have forgotten what I'm going to say before I've even said it. Yeah. So once I've started talking, it's out.
Yeah.
You know, it's names with me. It's people's names, like, you know, the boys' names. Everybody. Yeah. I'd say Tom, Martin, Stuart, David, Benji. That's the cat. And when I might be calling one of them. When you're calling one of them, and then they all go mad and say, "Why you don't forget my name? I'm your son." Yeah, I know that, but I go through the whole list.
Mine go crazy when I ask them if something, one of them is currently sitting his masters, and I keep on asking him when he's going to get his results, and he keeps on telling me that I told you that yesterday, I'm not going to tell you that today, so I just got to wing it, really. I just completely forget.
You know, Cherry, stop caring. That's the problem. We care too much.
We do.
All right, thanks very much for joining us, Sherry, and thanks for taking the time and effort to actually get on here. Sounds like you had quite a journey. Right, Carolyn, we've got a question from Barbara that says, how do you propose to ensure businesses formalise good, effective menopause policies in Wales?
Well, I think that's going to be a negotiation, isn't it? It's going to be a negotiation with the workplaces and with the unions. I can't emphasise how strongly how important a role the unions have in this, because they will be your mouthpiece. You know, it's going to be more difficult with smaller companies, like we know with pregnancy and everything else. It's more difficult with smaller companies. But if we start with the big boys, then it should filter through. And I would like to see every union having a team who are dedicated to making sure that workplaces where they have staff have an adequate, it should be a condition of service, that the menopause policy is fit for purpose, not an app that no bugger looks at and that the staff on the floor don't know about. Maybe it's something like, I mean, Barbara talked about they have a monthly menopause chat. I know Tesco's do. I'm thinking maybe it should be that kind of thing. I also would like to see every workplace offering their workforce medical menopause advice. So there'd be a doctor or a menopause nurse, we haven't got enough of those either, would actually come in maybe every 6 months or every year and answer the basic questions that the staff are experiencing. So we haven't written the policies. It's not up for me to write the policy for every workplace. I would like to see workplaces taking the initiative here, working with the unions. But once you start doing it, it's like a domino effect. But you've got to get in there and you've got to share the message. That's why when we do a workplace session with the APPG, we're really going to make a huge amount of noise about it. Add to that, there's a lot of celebrities, if you like, who are going into workplaces. Now, Louise Minchin, who was with the BBC, she left Breakfast, I think it was last week or the week before, and I had a long conversation with her when she talks about her experience of working on camera, under lights, going through menopause. She's now finished with the BBC and is really happy to do anything in connection with spreading the message about how workplaces need to be prepared to provide for women at this time in their life. And she's actually going in to workplaces. Davina McCall has done a huge amount of work around this. So you've got women who really got a voice out there speaking up for you. So unions, they are going to be the key to this, is to make sure we work with unions, to make sure they work with their members, who work together with the management of companies, get the policy at that level, and it'll filter down. So you're not talking to an individual manager, company level, company director needs to be told, this is what you need to do. And what I've found is when I've spoke to company directors, they are far more receptive than local managers who are terrified that they're going to be asking the company to do something they really don't want to do. So go to the top to start with and it'll filter down.
That's true. Right, we've got another testimony. This is from Christine. She says, I think I'm just starting with the menopause and I'm unsure how this will affect my work, but already I'm feeling tired and foggy headed. I think we can absolutely understand exactly. Yeah. Go and see the doctor straight away and start that journey, because the sooner you start, the sooner you'll get sorted out.
And don't forget, it's more than one symptom. There's like 30 different symptoms. So if you've got maybe 3 or 4 of them, then I'm going to say you're menopausal. So don't leave the doctor talk you into thinking, oh, well, maybe you need to go and have a test for this or a test for that. You know your body, you're menopausal. No, I want HRT. Nothing else, I want HRT. Don't be swayed into taking antidepressants or going for the dementia test. Try the HRT. If it doesn't work, well, then rethink it. But try it first, because I'm most cases, it's going to be the answer.
Thank you. Right, we've got time for one more question, I think. This is for the union. So what support can be offered in schools when women are struggling with emotions? I've been let down on this.
Well, again, this comes down to policy, doesn't it? I mean, when we're talking about schools, I've already said that I really firmly believe that when youngsters are in the sort of 14, 15 age group, they should have a PSE lesson which tells them exactly what, boys and girls, what can be expected out of their life as it progresses. So like when we talk about safe sex with kids, and we talk about drugs, and we talk about alcohol, and I'd like to think they're talking about the dangers of gambling, but there we are, it's another one nobody talks about. If the schools are delivering for the kids, then the schools would need to start to understand the needs of the staff. But again, any issues you have, go to a union, make your union, talk to the managers, the college principals, whoever, from the top down, make them listen. And again, like I say to everyone, if they don't listen, just tell them to come and see me, I'll make them listen.
And if you put education into schools, I think that's going to help the conversation as well, isn't it? Because the schools are going to be having that conversation with the children. So
can't deliver, you've got to practice what you preach, you can't deliver what you're not already doing.
All right, I'm just going to round that up then. Do we have anybody else who wants to come in, Maya?
Yes, sorry to jump there. We've got Barbara here, if you can, okay, I can see you can unmute.
Thank you. Just one point that you picked up now with the curriculums. A short time ago, the Welsh Government actually put out on Twitter a survey about what's missing from their sexual health and reproductive curriculum. Well, I responded to it and I said, absolutely, you are missing menopause out of your topic list. And I tagged Diane Danzebrink in it because she's actually been in to talk to us previously. And not until I tagged Diane in it did they even bother to respond.
Right. I'm going to defend him here, Barbara, because my great friend Jeremy Miles has taken over at education in the Welsh Government, and I have tortured him. I have literally tortured him that we've got to get it included on the curriculum. But what I've said to Jeremy is I don't want it to include it on the curriculum and then do bugger all about it. I want you to put it on the curriculum, and I will provide you with a lesson, which is what you should be delivering to the kids in school. And he said, right, no, he's not going to say no to me. So we are working, that's a work in progress.
Well, that's brilliant, because the response I had back was, oh, it will be included. However, the schools have already got their own decision-making skills, what to include or not, which I was really disappointed at the response.
Robert, do you want to send that to me so I can use it as ammunition?
Absolutely, I'd be delighted to. I'll send it through to Twitter now.
Right, okay. Cheers, love.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much, Barbara. Good to hear from you. Right, Maya, did we have anybody else who wants to jump on? Right, okay, so I want to say thank you. I'm so proud that our union community is campaigning for better support for members going through the menopause. Like I said before, with women living and staying in work for longer, it's clear menopause is not just a women's issue, but it's a workplace issue, and it's a trade union issue too. So we know many of our members are going through the menopause, and we know that with the right support in place, menopause can be managed and those suffering can be supported. Now, we've put a link in the chat to our menopause campaign page. I highly recommend getting involved, signing that petition and organising a meeting in your workplace. We'll also email you with details of how to do this later today. I want to say thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you to our wonderful guest speaker, Carolyn Harris MP.